All right.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
So
We can see.
you can see, you're good?
Yes, we are good. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Wonderful. So first, I want to say good afternoon to you. I definitely appreciate this opportunity. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. I'll have a few slides, but I'm also more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I look forward to sharing some time with you today. So first, the topic is procurement practices as a pathway towards economic development. I'm going to give a quick history of kind of where VCU is located and some of the work that we do and talk about anchor institutions more broadly. For the majority of this presentation, though, as it relates to a specific anchor initiative, I'm just going to be talking about one particular practice that we implemented and kind of share what that experience was like. Happy to touch on others if there's questions about those, but I figured this was the one that I had the most experience with, and so I felt most comfortable speaking about that one. So moving right along. All right, so this is me. I'm Stephen Davenport. I appreciate the introduction. You already know I'm the Assistant Vice President for Social and Economic Development. Part of what I try to do is to encourage small businesses to reach out and have conversations about how an institution like ours can be helpful. So this is a link to our website. You can schedule a meeting with me if you're local in the institution. We can sit down, we go over business plans, we do strategic consulting. We have a lot of just resources that we try to offer local community members. So that's my contact information. If you were to live in Richmond, you heard about an initiative like this would be the best way to contact me. Richmond, Virginia is located about 2 hours south of DC and about 5 hours south of New York City in a car. So it's kind of where we're located. Say that one more time.
No, it's fine. I just muted the person.
Oh, nowhere. Okay. So Richmond is about 2 hours south of DC, which is our nation's capital, and about 5 hours south of New York City, which is one of our largest cities. So Virginia is the formal, or Richmond rather, is the formal capital of the Confederacy. So when we had our Civil War, the Richmond, Virginia was the capital of the Confederacy. I mention that because there's still a lot of institutional legacies and related to that time period. So also in our history, we experienced the practice of redlining, which, if you're familiar, it was government sanctioned discrimination, essentially. So back then, if you were a homeowner and you wanted to have a loan to buy a house, banks literally would not issue loans to Black folks and to people who wanted to live in neighborhoods that were um, largely populated by Black folks. And so as a result, we had a lot of just divestment in those communities, and those legacies are still very present in Richmond, Virginia today. And so when we look at our census tracts, VCU is located near the center of the city, and surrounding Virginia Commonwealth University is some of our poorest census tracts in the region. We also have high rates of poverty surrounding the university. And so being aware of this and being aware of kind of who we are in the institution, we wanted to make sure that we had taken every opportunity that we can to address some of these concerns. And so on the screen, you'll see just more demographics about Richmond. This is 2022 data. So you'll see the population, the poverty rate, et cetera. Richmond is a majority Black city. It's 43% Black, 41% white, and other races make up the rest of that difference. I mentioned this too, again, because there's still deep racial divides. If I pulled up the census tract surrounding the university, the median household income of one of our nearby census tracts is less than $10,000. And so we have these stark divides. And so given that, VCU takes our anchor mission seriously. So at the university, We pride ourselves in our legacy of community engagement. Recently, our community engagement office has been restructured. During this restructuring process, we had an opportunity to kind of realign our values and see what things were important to us. So we came up with a guiding framework. Our guiding framework is that partnership, impact, and alignment are really important to us. And so in anything that we do, we try to make sure that we have local community partners that know the area, that are familiar with the customs and cultures of that region and that area specifically. So those partnerships are invaluable. We also want to make sure that we're doing things that make a difference. It's really important to us that the work that we do has meaning. And then finally, we want to align our resources. So Virginia Commonwealth University is a large Research One institution. And as a result, we have considerable research dollars. Our annual budget is about 1.4 or $5 billion. Our economic impact a couple of years ago when we did our last analysis in the Richmond region was over $9.5 billion. And so it's really important that when we have all of these resources and assets, that we take the time to align these resources and assets in ways that benefit our community. So our vision is to integrate community engagement in all aspects of VCU work. We hope to address societal inequities. We want to build the bridge between the university and the community, and we want to demonstrate civic responsibility. So this goes again into every aspect of what we do. We are an urban institution. We continue to grow, we expand into our surrounding communities. And so it's really important that we get buy-in from communities as we think about how we can grow in smart and sustainable ways. And so again, everything that we do, we want to just be very mindful of the partnerships and the impact and that we're aligning our resources. So when we're building these partnerships, some of our values are we seek to have reciprocal partnerships, equitable partnerships, and also asset-based partnerships. Even though, again, as I mentioned, in some of our surrounding neighborhoods, there's definitely some challenges. There's also a host of rich history, a resilience, a vibrancy, and a commitment to the future that we want to make sure that we don't lose sight of and really uplift the work that folks in those communities are doing. And so we're just really excited about where we are in this process right now. Moving along. So this is more generally information about anchor institutions specifically. So anchor institutions are generally focused around these things. So you have your operating, your service learning, and your investing. I'm going to focus on the purchasing part of this conversation as we move forward, but I'll talk about each of these. And so it's really important from a purchasing perspective that we're prioritizing our spending. As I mentioned earlier, our annual budget is over $1.5 billion. And so it's really important that we're strategic about where we spend those resources. So our goal is to prioritize diverse, sustainable, and local spending with small women and minority-owned businesses. We see this as an opportunity to help stabilize economies. We see this as an opportunity to link with local businesses and encourage them to serve and provide services in underserved neighborhoods and communities. We have several contracting opportunities, and in these contracting opportunities, we really put a priority on, again, small women and local-owned businesses. So that's from a purchasing perspective. From an employment perspective, we try to create pathways that encourage employment from disadvantaged neighborhoods. We have pipeline programs. We have various trainings that we offer in communities. We have trainings that we make available at the university. We have the opportunity to go in there and host mock interviews, resume building workshops, and we really just try to promote these services. We also leverage with some of our community partners to give them access to university resources. So if you're a community partner, we work with you. You'll have access to our university library systems, our databases. We really try to connect community members with relevant faculty members, to help grow their businesses in those sorts of ways. We also take a lot of effort, and this, to be honest, is an area that we can grow when we think about our real estate development efforts. So I mentioned we're a large institution, we continue to grow. More recently, we've started to focus on place-based initiatives and really trying to make strategic investments in communities and serve as an anchor point for some of the services that we offer. So that's an area that we're growing in. As an incubator, we have a school of business. Our school of business has several startup initiatives that run through it. We work with a lot of local nonprofits in our MBA programs and our marketing programs. So we provide a lot of these resources, again, to small businesses and local businesses, and just try to be laser focused on, whenever possible, trying to spend our money in locally and try to align our strategic assets locally. We also do a number of projects with nonprofit organizations. Again, in more familiar ways, we offer students. We have a robust service learning program. We have a federal work study program in place at VCU. This federal work study program is a little bit unique here. So the federal government will pay half of the salary and the university will pay the other. And that's whether that student is working at the university or working at one of our community partners. And so often we'll have folks reach out to us and request work study students or interns because they know that these interns, number one, will be institutionally supported. And then number two, that they have a real mission and vision to want to help and drive change in community. So we're happy with that work. And then we host a lot of networking, building relationship opportunities. We work with our local chambers of commerce. We work with our other anchor institutions in the area. So those will be hospitals. We work with several universities in the region. Richmond has a number of universities in the city. And then we also have a number of universities just around the region more broadly. And so we try to leverage those opportunities when we can to make sure that, again, we're aligning our resources and our impact. And then finally, as a workforce developer, again, we're being very mindful of our hiring practices. We continue to explore ways that we can incentivize people who live locally in the Richmond area to come and join us here at VCU. So this is the program that I wanted to spend some more time on. This was a SWAM Ambassadors Initiative that we are still in the process of piloting. So SWAM stands for Small Women and Minority-Owned Businesses. And so the goal of this initiative, we wanted to find ways that we could increase our spending, again, with small businesses in the Richmond area. And so at VCU, we have a number of departments in schools, and each department in school is responsible for how they spend their respective budgets. And so even though we have these broad institutional initiatives, it can be a little bit challenging at times because we don't have just a one centralized spending resource. And so if I'm here at VCU and I'm in my department and I have a colleague who may be in the Department of Biology, we may want to host an event, but it's really up to that individual department on who they contract with and how they spend their money. And so at the institution, I want to say around 2020 or so, at least that I became really aware of this, where we started tracking what departments were spending money where. We started tracking how many departments were spending money and what type of spend they were spending with small women and minority-owned businesses. And so we are in the process of, again, implementing this initiative, but one of the good things that's excited, we're able to see which departments in the university do this work really well. And so that was the first step in this process, was to identify those institutes or those departments that are really good at their SWAM spend numbers. And then we get those folks together and we kind of form an advisory board. We tackled what are some of the issues that we see. Again, one of the major issues that we see, a lot of people in the university have been here for a number of years. They're used to spending money with trusted community partners. They have their own relationships with vendors. And so it can become really easy to just continue to spend money and do your job in the ways that are most take place with the least resistance. And so part of what we talk about in some of these meetings is what are some ways that we can break down these barriers? And so one of the things that we've done on our procurement website, you can go there and you can see kind of a prioritized list of some of our strong SWAM vendors. You can also see very quickly on our website, you can do a search for any services that you need. When you find those services, you can see which SWAM vendors offer those services. And again, we really try to encourage our departments to spend locally. So we go through some of those practices. We also just continue to promote and market these strategies. We have a very robust group that meets monthly. This group is, I want to say, over 150 folks that are generally responsible for their departmental spend. And on these monthly meetings, we make sure to share new SWAM resources, among other resources, and we continue to drive home this messaging about how important this work has become. We also host an annual Swam Fest, and this is basically an open house. So people come to the university or close by to the university, actually. So they'll come to the university, they get an opportunity to kind of see what services we offer. This is also an opportunity for new vendors to ask questions about our procurement system. But it's also really important because we're a state institution, and as a state institution, a lot of our procurement practices are governed by the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so when we invite folks to this SWAM Fest, it's also an opportunity for them to meet other state institutions. So for example, here at VCU, if you're awarded a contract as a small minority-owned business, you have the option to enter that into a system we call VASCUP. Is basically a collective bargaining agreement with the state. And so if you're a small business and you win an award with us, you then don't have to go through another request for proposal or RFP process to do business with other state institutions. So more specifically, let's say you're a small business and you want to be a consultant with VCU, you go through our procurement process, you become a consultant with us. Now, if you want to consult for the state of Virginia or another state-sponsored institution, you can be directly awarded that contract. And so we're really excited about those practices as well. We also have a number of practices where we can direct awards. So there's a certain dollar limit where if you are a small minority or women-owned business, and we've since expanded that to local businesses, you can skip our kind of formal procurement process and we can make direct rewards. These rewards aren't humongous in nature, but they do provide a good opportunity for business to get their foot in the door with the university and continue to build those relationships. So after we identify these best practices, we're excited that this year, at the end of this school year, we will have our reward ceremony. And so we're going to find which institutions have done this work the best, or which departments rather have done this work the best this year. And at the end of the year, we're going to host an award ceremony. We're going to recognize their efforts. We'll invite some of the local SWAM vendors who have had the benefit of working with the particular department to come. And then we're going to promote and advertise that work, and we will continue that cycle. So that's kind of overview of what this SWAM initiative looks like. We also, at the end of this initiative, we will host a community partnership spotlight. And so these are some past community partnerships that we've done. We've worked with the local cemetery to kind of help them with a number of strategic dilemmas that they face. And we also have a program in place where we provide, again, some workforce development training. So this is from our website. These are two initiatives that we kind of already had up and running. And in the future, like I said, once this SWAM initiative is complete, you'll be able to come to our website and see a community spotlight that kind of just documents what that experience has been like, both for the department that was selected for their best practices, and also as a vendor kind of working with that department or another department and what their experience has been like. So that's basically all of the formal pieces that I've had for today. But again, I really hope that this is conversational. So I welcome any questions, comments. I'm happy to go back to a particular slide and talk about it in more detail. So yeah, I welcome any question.
Thank you very much, Stephen. We really appreciate you because I think this is one of the most difficult part of an anchor institution is this part that you just shared with us. So I'm opening the floor if there or for any questions. You said there is challenges in the community when you indicated the community commitment and challenges. What challenges did you identify previously? What you could identify?
So I think I heard you correctly. You were asking what challenges that we have in the community. Is this specifically with the initiative that I outlined, or more broadly, some of the broader
You
challenges?
can do, yeah, you can do broadly, please.
Okay, yeah. So again, in Richmond, Virginia, it has a deep legacy of slavery. Richmond was what we call sometimes the gateway to the South. And so Richmond was a major slave trading headquarters. And so what would happen, you would have enslaved folks were literally brought to Richmond and sold deeper into the South. So Richmond was a major slave port. Um, and as a result, again, there are still some very deep legacies with that. Virginia Commonwealth University is also a part of a health system. There's a lot of mistrust in communities related to that work. So um, at at the institution in the past, we were a leading medical institution. We were formed in the 1800s. During that time, grave robbing was a common practice. And there are still a number of people who live in the Richmond community that are Black that have grown up with stories of grave robbing, grown up with stories about medical mistrust. And as a result, when we go and we try to build these partnerships, we have to be very intentional, and we can only move forward at the speed of trust. And so oftentimes, um, again, I mentioned that we went through a reorg not too long ago in community engagement. And so when we started re-entering some of these conversations and communities, we had to put in a lot of work. We had to attend a lot of meetings. We had to show up. We had to be present. We had to demonstrate to community members that we were here for good intentions. And that hasn't always been the case. More broadly, outside of VCU specifically, again, the Richmond area, there is a deep racial divide there. It is a space where we are making tremendous strides. I think if you come visit us in Richmond, a lot of these things might not be apparent on the surface. So we have a wonderful, welcoming community. But for folks who have kind of grew up in the region, who have a deeper connection to the region, who have generational connections to the region, there's still a lot of mistrust. Our A number of our housing projects are kind of concentrated in the east end of the city. So we spend a lot of time focusing our efforts in that region. I want to say there are, give me a second, I can count some of them all. There's, I think, 4 of 5 housing projects that are concentrated in the east end. That number might be off, but it's at least 4 of them that are concentrated in that region. And so these are folks that are low income, they're on government assistance, and yeah, it comes with a host of challenges. There's gun violence challenges, substance abuse challenges, and we are committed to doing what we can to kind of alleviate some of that work, or some of that pain rather. So one of those initiatives I mentioned, we have a place-based initiative. We have the VCU Health Hub at 25th. It's anchored in the East End. It's an opportunity for folks to come there and really just have a holistic healthcare experience. And we say holistic, it's not just your physical health, it's your mental health, your financial health. We host a number of workshops out of the Health Hub. We provide a number of just community services. You can come to the Health Hub and get free legal advice. You can come to the Health Hub and get to meet with a dietitian. You can go on a grocery store tour. There's a grocery store that's adjacent to the health hub. And we have a number of people who will come in and we kind of do a grocery store tour. We talk about, how do you improve your eating habits? We just have a wealth of resources in that area. And we continue to expand and invest in that space. And so I don't want to paint a picture that it's all gloom. It's not, but I wouldn't be truthful if I said that the institutional legacies of slavery and racism are still present in the United States and in Richmond specifically. And so we continue to combat some of that. But
Thank you,
again,
Stephen. Yeah.
yeah.
Any questions from the participants? I think there's a lot of people involved on the call that's very much involved in service learning.
Mhm.
Can you brief us a little bit, how is your involvement in service learning at the university?
Yeah, so it's interesting you would ask about that one. I do a number of things, and that's probably the one that I do the least of. But service learning is still a great partner with us. And so what we've done with some of our service learning initiatives, we worked closely with the Community Engagement Office to identify community partners. And we work closely to help find professors that have an aligned interest with a community need. And then they offer courses in a number of categories and a variety of disciplines. And then we find whenever possible, when we can connect that professor and those students to have a real world learning experience. So we have what we call a real initiative at the university. And a part of that real initiative is making sure that all of our graduates have real world work experience. And service learning is an important component of that. I tell people normally in my introduction that I grew up at VCU. So I went to VCU as an undergraduate student. I got a degree in philosophy and African American studies. After that, I stayed at the university. I worked at a number of places. I ended up getting my MBA from the university. But I bring this up because I was a student there, and part of my service learning experience, we taught philosophy classes to elementary school students. We had a African American studies courses that were hosted in local libraries, that were hosted in a local cultural center, and those type of initiatives continue to take place. I mentioned the Health Hub earlier, that it's an anchor institution. I mean, that it's a place-based initiative in the East End, and we have the Department of Psychology offers courses there, as well as African American studies. Also, when I was getting my MBA at the university, we worked with a number of strategic partners to kind of help resolve some of their strategic dilemmas. So we work with some nonprofits, and we've worked with some small businesses, again, offering services at reduced or no cost to them and giving our students opportunities to work in that space. So again, I wish I knew more about our service learning initiatives. Again, that's one of the ones that I don't work as closely with, but I can say it's a robust program, and our community engagement office is critical in helping identify and make those partnerships between faculty members who have niche interests and community needs. Another example that comes to mind, Richmond has a number of historically Black cemeteries. And so we have a cemetery collaborative here. That cemetery collaborative is led by a history department professor, and he works very closely with a number of Black cemeteries, and we offer a number of services. So we have a 3D scanning service. And so our, what department is that? I'm not sure of the department, but our 3D scanning faculty will go over there. And so we've started the process of taking drone footage of local Black cemeteries. We've scanned headstones at cemeteries. We've kind of helped categorize who's in those cemeteries. And what's important to note here is that for cemeteries today in Virginia, if you are established as a cemetery, you have to provide perpetual care. that wasn't always the case. And so a number of our Black cemeteries that house some prominent Richmond residents, one of them, an early Black millionaire, her name was, I'm blanking on her name, see her face right now. This is terrible. Give me 1 second. I will tell you her name. I'll come back to that. But she started, Maggie Walker, that's her name. She started one of the first Black banks. She was an early millionaire. She's buried here locally in a Black cemetery that unfortunately does not have perpetual care. And so for a while, that cemetery was overgrown. It was not maintained. And so the history department faculty I mentioned, his name is Ryan. He worked very closely with a number of Black cemeteries to organize cleanup efforts. He regularly invites students out there to engage in some of that work. And it's really taken a life of its own in the city. It's a burgeoning focus area for the city of Richmond. We see a lot of activity. One of the cemeteries I mentioned that Maggie Walker is in, the city actually ended up purchasing that property. And so now the city will provide care. So we try to be, again, impactful in the work that we do and making sure that we align our resources.
Thank you, Stephen. Is there any question from anyone in the room? Okay, I recorded this session, but I will share the URL from the YouTube then with everyone. And there's something from Reverend Chris. What does Reverend Chris say? I concur about the cemetery neglect. Yeah, he's very involved here in Mamelodi with that. Thank you, Reverend Chris. So I'll share with everyone the YouTube. May I also share your email address with everyone, Stephen, if they want to get in contact with you? Then
Perfect.
thank you very, very much. And then I would say thank you to you presenting. How late is it there with you? You had to stand up very early.
Yeah, it's not too bad. So it's 7 a.m. now, and I wake up pretty early. So most days I'm up by about 5 a.m. So it's not too bad.
Okay, it's not too bad at least. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And thank you, Stephen, for being willing to do this for us. You came very highly recommended. So we appreciate and we are very impressed with what you are doing there. It's really something to follow and to take as a step to see how to include anchor institution strategies in the universities. Thank you
Perfect.
very, very much.
And I'd be happy to have any one-on-one conversation. So I look forward to hearing from you all.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for attending. Appreciate, enjoy your long weekend. We have tomorrow a public holiday, so we have
Wonderful.
a nice long weekend. Have a wonderful day further. Keep well. Bye-bye.